What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the week after our championship race. Week and a half after, 2 weeks. First full Sunday without racing for, I think it's like 90 days we have until the Daytona 500. I could be incorrect on that. February 4th is going to be our clash at the Coliseum, but there's plenty more racing going on after that. Snowball Derby. You have the Chili Bowl going on. So plenty of stuff to keep us interested in racing, as well as you got NFL starting to heat up. And you have NBA, if you guys are into that, and hockey, NHL. So let's go ahead and just jump into some things here. So some interesting things came out regarding Ross Chastain winning the race. I mean, we kind of talked about it, where they didn't even show anything about Ross winning the race celebration. They went straight to Blaney. So there's some rumors out there that we're going to leave them as rumors until somebody confirms them, but I doubt they will, just because of how controversial they can be. So first and foremost, one of the rumors that they had it out there was that NASCAR went out to Chastain's spotter and pretty much told him, you need to get out of the way of the championship 4 drivers. And this needs to happen. And it kind of that can kind of play right into Blaney being as frustrated as he was in gestures. Now, he came out and said that he was frustrated because the only one he was worried about was the 5 car. 5 car was coming up on him. He didn't want to get past, which would have caused him to lose the championship. So I can see that rumor possibly being true. Everything's been pretty much denied. I believe the spotter for Ross Chastain did come out and say something, but then he kind of backed off on it. So it's hard to tell what's going on really there. And but just some more interesting fuel to the fire, we'll call it. I mean, not a lot of people like Ross Chastain after what he did last year at Martinsville with the hail melon. He hasn't made too many friends because he drives hard. Sometimes I think he crosses the line, but sometimes he's just racing, and a lot of people don't really care for that when it comes to just they don't want to get moved out of the way. And you know what? I'm all for if you're going to move somebody out of the way, if you do it respectfully and you're not trying to dump them or wreck them, like Denny did at Pocono last year. Denny did some stuff this year with that. The whole tit for tat with Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin. You know, I was listening to NASCAR radio on Sirius XM yesterday, and everybody believes that Chase Elliott's going to come back to his full potential. I kind of agree. They were talking to Dave Moody about it, and I don't know. I think he's still got some time to grow back. I think he's kind of slipping off a little bit. Does that mean he's not the most popular driver anymore? Probably not, because look at Dale Jr. I mean, Dale Jr. unfortunately didn't win a race, and there's one argument for NASCAR not rigging things, if you want to argue that. And I know we've talked about the Hendricks mystery cautions and so on. I mean, granted, Jimmy Johnson was Dale Jr.'s teammate for a while, and then he had to go with Jimmy Johnson, but people would have thought that Dale Earnhardt Jr. would have won a championship, and he didn't. Maybe if he would have gone to Joe Gibbs Racing instead of Hendrick, I think he probably would have, because he wouldn't have had the fight for equipment and talent. And I think that's very prevalent in people, is the fighting for the talent and equipment. Or, you know, a team picks certain people saying, hey, you're going to get this equipment this time or whatnot, and it's going to be better. I know teams operate independently, the car teams will say, but they're all still one collective team, so it's hard to tell. And that kind of goes in the whole idea of your teammate racing, but why are you going to go out there and try to dump your teammate like a 11 and a 19, just for an example? You know, why are you going to go out in there and race him hard? Now, if you're going for the win, okay, yeah, but why not team up and get up to the front, and then you two fight for the win, and that's more money for the team, which, you know, could help your crew go forward, because, you know, I don't know. Anyway, I digress. So, yeah, there was that rumor going out that they were trying to get Ross Chastain out of the way, because in this era of the playoff format, Ryan Blaney is the first Cup Series driver to not win the race and win the championship. So, I mean, we're setting a precedent there. I don't think it's bad. I mean, the best driver won, and that was Chastain. It just so happens he wasn't on for the times that would have put him into the playoffs. I mean, you're going to see it probably with this regular season championship tournament in the NBA that they just did, that they're doing right now, but they brought out, where you're going to have some teams get hot and they're going to get out of that championship. But watch, they'll go and make a decent run in the playoffs, or they just might have a hot streak. So, I mean, that's the way this NASCAR playoffs set up. Whether you like it or not, I'm still on the fence about that. Because, like, look at Blaney. He somewhat was mediocre pretty much the whole entire year, except for, he won Charlotte. And, he took it off and won his 2 last races, Martinsville, and he won Phoenix. So he got hot at the right time. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't think the previous one was the best. The previous style was the best, where you could crown a champion mid-season if he's got so many points. But at the same time, I don't know if the playoff format's the way to go here or not. Just because you have everybody else racing and somebody get hot. Now, granted, everybody else does a playoff format like this when it comes to sports teams, but they're done playing in the playoffs. Go to NFL, you lose the wild card round, you're going home, and that person you played against is advancing. NASCAR's different with that, where you have everybody else racing, and that's an argument that I've heard that if they really wanted the championship winner to win the race, then make the race between 4 drivers. And I tell you what, it's probably going to be stupid, and it's going to be slow. It's going to be boring, and not slow, but boring. It's because there's not going to be a lot of action going on. Now, granted, if you just pay attention to TV, one could argue that that's all you see, because, you see snippets of other people racing, but they focus heavily on the championship 4 or your race leader. So I think there's some work to be done. I think they're moving in the right direction, but I think maybe there might be a hint to regress a little bit and reevaluate going forward. So that's my take on the whole rumor with Ross Chastain and Ryan Blaney, and why he was so livid in the car. And you're in the moment racing. I get it. You want to get out there and move out of the way. But at the same time, if a guy's running for a championship, and then you have people that are running for the race, your brain is race specific. You don't care if that guy behind you is running for a championship, as long as he just doesn't wreck you, and you don't wreck him and you race clean. You're going to go out there and go for the win, because that's money for your team. It makes sense business-wise to think of it as a race by race, and then you think of it bigger picture with the championship. So that's my whole idea with that. And, if you think otherwise, I'm more than happy to discuss it, or you can hear your comments. Hey, that's what this is all about, Armchair Crew Chief. So, just moving on, a little bit more formalities. I want to pay our respects to Ken Squire. He passed away Wednesday, the 15th. He was in hospice care. But big name in NASCAR, big name in the announcing realm for NASCAR, as well as other races as well. So, condolences to his family for their loss. He led a good life, and time to celebrate it. And hopefully we can kind of push on to have a similar life to him and enjoy things like he did. So let's just go ahead and move in to some of the different changes that are going on to NASCAR with the silly season going forward. And, these will probably get a little bit slower, or not slower, but smaller podcasts until we get back in the racing, unless something big happens. We'll try to cover the Chili Bowl a little bit and so on. But noticeable changes that have been come out, and these are not ones that we've talked about. These are ones that have kind of come out a little bit in between. Well, first and foremost, before we get into those changes, it was Ryan Newman at Homestead, Miami. He got penalized $10,000 and for improper protective equipment during a race weekend. So what that meant, he took off his racing, the head sock, supposed to help you with fire prevention and so on, and didn't run it during practice and qualifying. So he got fined $10,000. He had a penalty, or he had it reviewed with an appeals board. The appeals board held up and said, no, you were in the wrong. The appeals board did come back and then went after NASCAR a little bit in the sense of, you guys need to get a little bit more uniformity on your punishment on this and set this up and not just have the rule and not have, you can penalize them no matter what. So I think that's smart. I don't know how well the helmet would do in a fire prevention. The head sock's supposed to help with that, but the most vital part that you can't cover because you got to see is your face and your eyes, and that's not. But anyway, that happened. That appeals happened. Got denied. So moving on to our continuation of the silly season, we know about Hailie Deegan. We know about Rajah Caruth, Josh Berry, a couple of these other guys, Eric Almirola, Chastain getting the Bud Light sponsor, or I think it's Busch Lights. But anyway, moving on, some other information that we've had. We have a number for Zane Smith. As we know, he's running for Spire Motorsports next year with a partnership, I guess you could call it, with Trackhouse. So Zane is a signed Trackhouse driver, but he's going to be running a Spire car next year, and he's going to be driving the 71. Also with Spire, we have Nick Sanchez and Chase Purdy that are going to be running full-time in the Truck Series next year for Spire Motorsports. If you recall, Spire Motorsports bought Kyle Busch Motorsports truck area. Their whole shop. So they're also going to be fielding a third truck with various drivers, a full-time truck. Kyle Busch has expressed interest in driving 5 of those races. Whether he does that or not, we'll see what happens. That brings money in, so I could see why they do it, even though I don't like it. I don't like it as a fan because he's probably just going to go out there and, sweep the field. But at the same time, I see the business aspect of it, and I understand why they're doing it. Shane Van Ginsenbergen has expressed interest in running full-time in 2025. He pretty much said he wants to compete there. He's going to be running a part-time schedule in that 91 Trackhouse car in 2024. So that's something there to change. We have Taylor Gray, Trucks Tricon, and Tanner Gray is going to be a Tricon. Brennan Poole's going to the 44 Alpha Prime Xfinity car full-time. Daniel Hemrick's going to be driving the 31 Cup Series car for Colleague. Rumor is that the 16 AJ Allmendinger is going to be probably moving back down to compete for a championship in the Xfinity race. Still things up in the air. Grant Enfinger, GMS Racing, they shut down. They ceased operations, we'll say, at the end of this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out, where he goes. You have still Matt DiBenedetto still out there, question mark. So, you have some of these drivers that, where are they going to go, we don't know. We also have some drivers that are in the fold for other vehicles. The 10, Noah Gragson. Rumor has it, and I think at the time of this recording of this podcast, there is a press conference at 11 Eastern on Thursday, the 16th of November. If I remember, it's 11 from Colleague. Rumor has it they're going to name Josh Williams to drive one of their cars full-time. Colleague is. So that's big news for Josh. He was the one out there that made headlines and stole people's hearts by, getting frustrated with NASCAR because they said you need to park it, and he parked it, got out, and walked it. He got upset, or he got yelled at by NASCAR, who got upset at him. But the fans loved it and ate it up. He sold, I think somebody had it, and this is a good analogy, Dale Jr.-like merchandise after that happened. Which, hey, that is, I believe it. That's true. That's a good analogy because Dale Jr., one of the popular drivers going on. We also have Ben Bayshore, I think that's how you say his name. He was the crew chief for the 20 Xfinity car with John Hunter in it. He's going to be moving to the 42 with John Hunter, so that hearing some of the interviews that John Hunter's done, he's excited about that. See if he can continue on some of this racing and the connection. See if they can prove to go forward with that. Jimmy Johnson's going to be running some of the races as well. I don't know if we have covered that in previous. I don't expect too much out of him. I think he's a Bill Belichick for comparison. He's got the name, but he's got to have the equipment around him to run well. And, the analogy with Belichick was Tom Brady. Tom Brady and the guys around him, because look at Belichick now. I mean, that's just my opinion, my analogy on it. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think he's going to be relevant in the racing. But anyway, moving forward with that, we're just about at the end of this podcast. I was going to say something, and I didn't want to mess anything up. But, don't forget to vote for your favorite driver. NASCAR most popular driver is out there and open. The award ceremony, I think, is coming up next month. And then we move on, and we have our Chili Bowl, Snowball Derby. I think it's Snowball Derby is what it's called. And then we go into getting ready for Daytona and the Clash. Clash is February 4th, if I remember correctly. And then we move into Daytona is the 16th, if I am not mistaken on that. So, we're moving on. February 4th, February 15th, 15th is the duels Thursday to do it. And then 18th is the Daytona 500. And then we move on to Atlanta, and that's our February. So February's coming up pretty quick, guys. We're in the holiday season. NASCAR drivers don't get a lot of breaks. So, we're going to kind of keep trucking along and move on. And, if there's anything you guys want to hear in this podcast going forward for the 2024 season, drop some information in there. Please be sure to like and comment this podcast. Share it with some friends. Let's get this audience out wide enough. I'm going to hope that I can get some more people like I did with Tab Boyd, the spotter for Ricky Stenhouse, and kind of get that information out there and see if I can get somebody to talk to, and maybe we can build this up just besides it being my opinion on racing and an overview. We can get some other information out there for you guys. Some behind-the-scenes look. That's what I want to kind of focus on going forward. But, we're wrapping up our second season of following Cup Series, and I appreciate you guys for listening and staying along. And, be sure to check out for some of these smaller, shorter podcasts like this one until we get cranked back up around the Clash, the Coliseum, and we'll go from there. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.